So 2021, that's this year. 2001 was an interesting year. I've talked about that a little bit. Yes, I am filming this from my bed. I don't even know we're allowed to post that on YouTube. Anyway, 2001 was an interesting year. I've mentioned that in a different video. Maybe I should link to it in the video description if people are interested, about a serial killer who was caught, who was targeting young women, and how that kind of dominated the first almost maybe like over 9 years of my life, and the fear culture that comes with living in a time of a serial killer. And he targeted mostly white young women, and so very relevant for myself. And yeah, the Pacific Northwest has had their fair share, or more than their fair share, of serial killers, especially for young white women. And yeah, so that was one thing from 2001. But the two biggest things, well, not the two biggest things, that was kind of, I ranked them in the serial killer video, or I think I did. Anyway, the one that came kind of first in the year, it was in February, and then there was like a follow-up earthquake in October, or I don't know, something like that. The first one happened earlier in the year, and it was a 6.7 or 6.8 magnitude earthquake, which is actually pretty big, especially for an urban area, city area. And a building fell down, and it was an interesting thing. Religion gets pulled into all of this for me. So it was interesting because there's the terror aspect of, we heard a building fell, and so we were like, phones were dead kind of thing. And I was at school, my sister was at school, and the building fell down closer to where my dad was working, so we didn't know if my dad was alive. And then it was, well, how do we, like, if he's dead, how do we even know he's dead? And so terror set in, and terror is an accurate word for a natural disaster, especially if you're not with your family and you can't reach your family. Or I'm speaking from my experience, so I shouldn't say you, for me. And he was alive, and we found out he was alive in the end. But that in-between period, the uncertainty of whether someone's alive or not, was yeah, it's terrifying. And then later in the year, the September 11th attacks occurred. And one of my friends, so a lot of people had heard about it before I even got to school. They just saw it on the news, and they were like, oh, a buzz, oh my gosh, did you hear the World Trade Center and all this stuff? And like, then there was one kid in our class who's my friend, and we kind of bonded because she had family in the area and didn't know if they were alive. And so she was going through what I had gone through earlier, of the uncertainty of whether her family was alive or not, and not being able to reach them right away. And her family ended up living, but it was just a really peculiar thing because a bunch of people were just talking about the news, right? And here's one person that, the person I'm bonding with, the one person who actually has family over there, people are just snubbing. It's all about who has the biggest guilt story, or who heard about it first, right? Kind of thing. And like, I'm bonding with her just because I've had an experience similar in the uncertainty if family is alive or not aspect. It was just a really peculiar thing. We bonded. She was Jewish. I was raised, I went to Sunday school like every weekend for many years, and then later on it kind of stopped going. I didn't get baptized. I'm Islamic, actually, in the end. Spoiler alert. But my parents raised me Christian, and like I went to a mission trip to Mexico, where we built a turkey farm and a medical clinic, which is not immediately apparent how that links to religion, but we had like arts and crafts and stuff, kind of related to religion. And so we bonded. And so I learned more. I got to go to her bat mitzvah and stuff, and she eventually moved away. And then in middle school, my best friend was actually Islamic, Egyptian and Bangladeshian or something combo. And then she moved away too, but it was just interesting kind of having friends and good friends that or different religions than what I was raised with. And I think one of the saddest parts of the September 11th attacks, so a lot of people just focus on the victims from the attacks themselves, but not, which is a form of oppression to the people who are Islamic in America, who have been antagonized and discriminated against because of their religion or how they look. And so it's just really sad that people are like, this was such a terrible event. It's like the same thing as those kids in class that were like, I heard about it first, or I heard about it from the New York Times, or I heard about it from blank, blah, blah, blah. It's not genuine concern for the families of those affected. Or let's make a monument. Like, that's not what these people wanted in the first place, speaking from my experience. There's a trauma component that goes to it that just people seem to kind of write over, which is really sad. So it was really interesting that this natural disaster that Seattle had experienced, 6.7, 6.8 approximately magnitude earthquake earlier in the year, helped me prepare to kind of the trauma related to that, and the uncertainty and the terror of not knowing if my dad was alive actually helped my friend and me be compassionate to my friend, because I had gone through something similar, and the uncertainty of knowing whether family was alive or not during the September 11th attacks for her. So I had a similar experience, because at the root of it, it's uncertainty of whether family's alive or not. And so that I had gone through with the earthquake, and it's just kind of interesting because natural disasters and terrorist attacks aren't necessarily something I would have put together as a similar, but at the root cause, if family is your number one, then yeah, if you don't knowing whether your family's alive or whether your family's alive or not, that can be in either one. And I guess it's just interesting, I was born during Hurricane Andrew in the United States, which to date, so 2021, still is the most financially destructive hurricane in the history of the United States. It hit mostly Louisiana. People don't really talk about it. There are big hurricanes that are covered by the mass media or news or press in the United States of America. And then there are big hurricanes that are so bad, so destructive, that excessive headlines that typically accompany hurricanes, such as like Hurricane Katrina and stuff like that, it's inappropriate in the end. And so they don't cover the hurricane as much because it is so big and so bad. I kind of wonder, in hindsight, like I was born during it. I wasn't born in Louisiana or the Southeast. I was born for the North than that. So I wasn't there, but even if I was there, I'm gonna guess I couldn't have remembered that kind of stuff, those details, because the billions of dollars in damage that bill comes later. But it's just interesting, like maybe the mass media in America does have a soul. They know that excessive coverage of something really bad can be a really bad thing, especially since there are real victims there, and it's just kind of mistreating them sometimes. Yeah. So why am I filming this from my bed? Maybe it's just 2 cases of the love bug and being homesick.